Israel says rocket fired from Lebanon killed at least 10 children and 2 adults in a soccer field in Golan Heights. Good morning. Welcome to Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. I am thankful to all international news resources and my team. I am also thankful to all American, European, Canadian, Australian, Asian, African channels and AP, AFP and Reuters news agencies. Now watch the channels. Rather, headlines. In retaliation, Israel is bombing Lebanon. Kamala Harris' running mate could be a gay, married with 2 kids. Wildfires are continuing raging through Northern California and in Jasper Town in Canadian Rockies. After sabotage attack on railway network, the service is coming to normal in France. Israeli bombing in Gaza on a school killed at least 30 people overnight. Donald Trump called Kamala Harris a far-left lunatic, appealed Christians to vote for him because America in danger. American-Japanese defense chiefs meeting. Now watch the channels.
Several breaking stories as we come on tonight. The race to contain that massive wildfire burning out of control in Northern California. More than 130 structures already destroyed, thousands more threatened, and a deadly attack in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. Late details just coming in. First, thousands of firefighters battling in tough conditions across several counties. The park fire exploding in size, doubling overnight. Now larger than this. First, thousands of firefighters battling in tough conditions across several counties. The park fire exploding in size, doubling overnight, now larger than the sprawling city of Los Angeles. The towering flames threatening communities, jumping highways. Thousands of residents under evacuation, including the town of Paradise, devastated by the deadly Camp Fire 6 years ago. Our team on the fire lines. That breaking news overseas, a rocket striking a soccer field in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights where children were playing. Civilians killed, the death toll expected to rise. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning Hezbollah will pay a heavy price. Matt Rivers reporting from Israel. The race for the White House. Former President Donald Trump and running mate J.D. Vance hit the trail amid the renewed focus on the Ohio senator and what he reportedly said in private a few years ago about Trump and conservative priorities. And the top contenders vying for a spot on the ticket with Vice President Kamala Harris. What we know about who's leading the pack. Mary Alice Parks standing by. Growing outrage over the death of Sonia Massey, the black woman killed in her own kitchen by a sheriff's deputy. What her family is now saying as organizers prepare for a national day of mourning. The incredible rescue off the coast of Texas. An Oklahoma couple lost at sea for nearly 38 hours after becoming separated from their scuba diving group. The Justice Department goes after TikTok, calling the social media platform a national security threat. The major effort to restore France's rail network to full service, one day after arsonists attacked several lines. And the latest from Team USA, the first medals, a new Summer Games record, and an American great returns to the pool. And America Strong tonight, the baseball superfan and his cross-country message of inspiration. Message of inspiration.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Wade Johnson. We begin tonight with a desperate race to contain a massive wildfire raging in Northern California, exploding to more than 500 square miles. That's larger than the city of Los Angeles, scorching 5,000 acres per hour. The fast-moving wildfire doubling in size over the last 24 hours, consuming more than 130 homes and threatening thousands more. More than 2,000 firefighters battling to control the flames, thousands of people forced to evacuate their homes. The park fire prompting California's governor to declare a state of emergency in 2 counties. The flames also threatening the town of Paradise, now under an evacuation warning. You might remember that neighborhood was destroyed 6 years ago during the deadly Camp Fire, one of the worst in state history. ABC's Jacqueline Lee leading us off tonight from the fire zone.
Tonight, this massive blaze burning out of control in Northern California. The park fire exploding to more than 500 square miles, an area bigger than Los Angeles.
There was just a perfect wave of everything coming together to make aggressive fire behavior. From the slope, the terrain, topography.
Thousands of firefighters are working around the clock. What authorities say started as a suspected arson is now 0% contained. Scorching 5,000 acres an hour, fueled by bone-dry conditions, gusty winds, and the hottest summer on record. More than 130 homes torched and thousands more threatened. This fire has consumed everything in its path, including what's left of this house, the fireplace, the only thing left standing, and in the kitchen, it's still smoldering. Jen Robbins and her daughter had to leave their farm and animals behind. These pictures show just how close the flames came as they escaped through a tunnel of fire. The heat melting tires. So this is dragging down the highway as you guys are trying to race out.
Yeah. I don't know how I was able to drive here, but I was shaking so hard and just crying when I arrived here. I just got out of the vehicle and collapsed and was throwing up. We already have PTSD from the campfire.
6 years ago, Robbins lost everything, her home and pets, in the campfire in nearby Paradise. This new park fire is already more than twice as big and is threatening Paradise all over again. Robbins doesn't know if anything will be left of the life she had just rebuilt.
Not knowing if the home we built is existing, not knowing if my livelihood of these farm animals, if they're even alive, I mean, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of pain.
Tonight, so many here are waiting for word, fearing they'll have to start all over again. When, as you can see, there's still a lot of spot fires, the smoke incredibly thick, turning the sky orange with concerns about air quality, and this comes as firefighters are racing to get the park fire under control ahead of the next heat wave. Whit.
All right, Jacqueline Lee, thank you. Let's get right to meteorologist Jeff Smith from our New York station WABC. And Jeff, the smoke from those wildfires also causing poor air quality in several states.
And the sheer number of wildfires burning is absolutely staggering. We have 100 in the U.S., 900 in Canada. That's why we have so much smoke in both countries, basically, causing hazy skies out there. The most concentrated smoke, though, right near that explosive park fire. You can wake up to an orange, reddish, kind of Mars-like appearance to the sky in places like Redding and Chico, California. That spreads into northern Nevada during the day tomorrow. Even into Salt Lake City and Idaho Falls, some poor air quality by later on tomorrow afternoon. Mother Nature not going to be helping our cause either. Approaching 100 degrees in Chico by Wednesday, and that heat wave spreading into the heartland could be rivaling records in Colorado Springs and Amarillo by Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Whit.
Jeff Smith, it's great to have you. We appreciate it. Now to the breaking news overseas, what's being called the deadliest attack on Israeli citizens since October 7th. At least 11 children and teenagers killed after a rocket strike on a soccer field in Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. Israel blaming the militant group Hezbollah, vowing retaliation. Let's bring in ABC's Matt Rivers now near the scene of that attack tonight. Matt, you're getting new details about the strike and the victims.
Yeah, with 5 of those victims, all teenagers inside that hospital behind me with serious injuries, and what's been the deadliest day here in Israel since the October 7th attacks. This video is the moment the IDF says an Iranian-made Hezbollah rocket landing near a soccer field in a Druze community in the Golan Heights, killing at least 12 people there, with most being children, injuring dozens more. Hezbollah, however, denying responsibility for the attack. It immediately spiked tensions at the northern border with Lebanon, where the IDF and Hezbollah have been trading fire daily. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu currently flying back to Israel after a trip to the U.S. This as fighting in Gaza, of course, continues. Another 30 people killed there in an Israeli strike at a school-turned-shelter. And with all of this coming just one day before negotiators were set to resume ceasefire discussions in Rome.
And Matt, as you noted there, Israel and Hezbollah, they've been exchanging fire since that October attack, and this strike only adding to the fears of a possible wider war.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Netanyahu has already said that Hezbollah will, quote, pay a heavy price it has not paid before. Now, what that means exactly remains unclear, but the fact that we're even posing the question of all-out war shows you how serious this attack is and the gravity of Israel's looming response.
Matt Rivers, our thanks to you tonight. Back here in the U.S., the race for the White House heating up after a historic week. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump on a weekend campaign blitz. 4 Democratic contenders for vice president, including Governors Josh Shapiro and Andy Beshear, are out stumping for Harris today. Meanwhile, Trump's running mate J.D. Vance facing criticism for previous comments. Here's ABC's White House correspondent, Mary Alice Parks.
Tonight, as Vice President Kamala Harris fundraises in Massachusetts.
We're the underdogs in this race. But this is a people power campaign. And we have momentum.
A team of potential running mates on a campaign blitz.
He's afraid to debate her because he's afraid of his record.
Josh Shapiro, the first-term governor of Pennsylvania and rising star in the Democratic Party. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, popular among labor unions. Other prospects on the list include Senator Mark Kelly, the former astronaut from Arizona. Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina, a state Democrats have long hoped to flip. And Andy Beshear of Kentucky, a rare Democratic governor of a red state. But while Democrats go on offense, Trump's campaign playing cleanup, saying he was talking about, quote, uniting the country when he made these unnerving comments overnight.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine.
Trump is still facing a criminal indictment for allegedly plotting to overturn the 2020 election results in order to stay in office after he lost. He denies the allegations. And it's also been a rough 72 hours for Trump's running mate. After past comments that Ohio Senator J.D. Vance made about, quote, childless cat ladies running the Democratic Party resurfaced. Vance saying this week,
this is not about criticizing people who for various reasons didn't have kids. This is about criticizing the Democratic Party for becoming anti-family and anti-child.
And today, the New York Times unearthing old emails Vance said to a friend sympathizing with calls for police body cameras. His opinions appearing to diverge with the current Republican Party. I hate the police, he wrote. Given the number of experiences I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through.
Now, the Vance campaign said that it was unfortunate the decade-old private conversations leaked and that his views changed after starting a family and becoming a dad. But all of this seems to be a part of a pattern, showing how Senator Vance really evolved from one time being an opponent of former President Donald Trump's to then a strong supporter and, of course, now his running mate.
Mary Alice Parks, thank you. And tune into This Week tomorrow morning. Martha Raddatz interviews 3 leading governors about the state of the 2024 race, Democrats J.B. Pritzker and Wes Moore, and Republican Chris Sununu. Next tonight, the growing outrage over the police shooting of Sonia Massey in her own kitchen, a 36-year-old Illinois mother of 2. Her family saying she struggled with her mental health leading up to the shooting. Her death ruled a homicide after an autopsy. And tonight, new details about the deputy charged in the case. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood with a warning. These images are disturbing.
Say her name! Sonia Massey!
Tonight, growing outrage over the police shooting death of Sonia Massey. Activists declaring a day of mourning with more than 20 cities across the United States expected to hold vigils and rallies tomorrow.
This is the hardest thing that we have ever been through as a Massey. It just breaks my heart that our family has to go through this.
An autopsy report showing the 36-year-old mother of two died by a bullet that entered under her left eye. Massey called 911 to report a prowler on July 6th. The encounter escalating after Massey went to remove a pot of hot boiling water from the stove, as seen in this graphic police body camera video.
Hot steaming hot steaming water.
Away from hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. No, that's right. I'll shoot you in your face.
Okay,
Drop the pot. Drop the pot. Shots fired. Shots fired. Shots fired.
Tonight, ABC News obtaining a grievance filed for former Deputy Sean Grayson, seen in that video shooting Sonia Massey, claiming he was terminated without just cause. He's asking for his job back along with lost wages and benefits. Grayson's past now also under scrutiny. He worked for 6 law enforcement agencies in the past 4 years, despite being charged with 2 DUIs, one in 2015 and in 2016, and before that was discharged from the Army for misconduct.
And Grayson has pleaded not guilty to the charges in Massey's killing, his attorney also declining to comment on the case.
Morgan Norwood, thank you. Now to the dramatic rescue of 2 divers after 38 hours stranded at sea. The U.S. Coast Guard located the husband and wife after seeing a flashing light in the water. They went missing on Wednesday while scuba diving off a Texas beach during bad weather. Tonight, my loved ones are calling this a miracle. Here's ABC's Melissa Adon.
A harrowing tale of survival tonight after this husband and wife managed to survive nearly 38 hours in the ocean off the coast of Texas.
It is a miracle. It is a miracle.
Divers Nathan and Kim Makers were with the group scuba diving in the Gulf of Mexico when bad weather and violent waves separated the couple from the group.
The rain was so hard that you couldn't see outside. The waves were atrocious.
A huge swell comes in and engulfs Kim and Nathan totally. When the swell rolls out, they're nowhere to be found.
The Coast Guard deployed, searching more than 1,600 miles, miraculously spotting the couple who were signaling SOS using their dive flashlights.
Nathan is diabetic. He was almost in a coma when they got him. That's another miracle. They got him just in time.
With definitely this family rescued just in time. Now the family of Nathan and Kim saying that he was actually just released from the hospital. His wife, though, however, is still recovering. But again, this couple so thankful to have survived.
And quite a rescue. Melissa, thank you. Next tonight, a major new development in U.S. efforts to ban TikTok. In new court filings, the Department of Justice alleging the popular social media platform of being a national security threat. Let's bring in ABC's Perry Russum in Washington. Perry, the DOJ, they're defending this new law that would force TikTok to sell its U.S. operations or be banned altogether.
Yeah, what the Justice Department is warning, allowing TikTok to operate under ByteDance's Chinese parent company has a risk that comes with it. They say that its Chinese company poses a risk of letting China influence U.S. elections, where China can manipulate the platform to sway the views of Americans. TikTok's parent company has sued the federal government, arguing the law violates the First Amendment. U.S. officials say TikTok employees have sent significant amounts of restricted user data to each other, storing it on Chinese systems, where ByteDance employees in China could then access it. The Chinese government could then require ByteDance to secretly help with intelligence gathering and national security efforts. A spokesperson for TikTok says the U.S. government has not shown any proof of its claims.
All right, Perry Russum, thank you. Now to the Summer Games. Team USA off to a strong start, winning its first gold medal for swimming a short time ago. Earlier today, U.S. cyclist Chloe Dygert appeared headed for gold before taking a nasty spill, but then won the bronze. And Americans Cassidy Cook and Sarah Bacon won silver in synchronized diving. ABC's Maggie Rulli from Paris tonight.
And it's the first for Team USA in Paris.
Tonight, Team USA going for the gold, kicking off day 1 of the Olympics already on the leaderboard, earning their first medals of the 2024 Summer Games. A big day for the men and women in the pool. The men's 4x100 meter freestyle relay team beating out Australia and Italy for the first gold medal for Team USA. The women earning silver in the same event. Katie Ledecky winning her first of what could be a record-breaking games for the swimmer, taking home the bronze in the 400 meter freestyle. First-time Olympians Cassidy Cook and Sarah Bacon getting the party started, taking silver in the women's 3 meter synchronized springboard event with their forward 2.5 somersaults, 1 twist dive. And U.S. cyclist Chloe Dygert taking a spill on the course, but coming back to grab bronze in road cycling. And 3-time gold medal defending champions, the U.S. women's water polo team, with a commanding first win over Greece, 15-6. Cheering them on, First Lady Jill Biden, sporting an American flag sweater. The whole country and world coming together, reliving this now iconic moment from the opening ceremonies. Celine Dion, rarely seen, her first live performance since her rare neurological diagnosis. Connecting with her fans, and this moment, taking it all in as the world watches.
And with there are 13 gold medals up for grabs tomorrow, and Team USA is hoping to stay strong in the pool. They won 3 medals there today, and they're hoping to win 3 more in swimming tomorrow as well.
A great start, Maggie Rulli. Thanks so much. And France's high-speed rail system is still experiencing some disruptions after a series of attacks just hours before the Summer Games opening ceremony. Authorities are investigating what's being called coordinated sabotage, arson fires set along the tracks, impacting some 800,000 commuters, including some athletes. When we come back here tonight, the historic agreement between Apple and the union representing some of its workers, and more Russian warships arrive in Cuba. Next tonight, a sign of strengthening ties between Russia and Cuba. 3 more Russian warships arriving at the island nation 90 miles from the U.S. It's the second such visit in recent months. In June, U.S. officials tracked 4 Russian warships when they arrived in Cuba for joint exercises. Still ahead, Apple reaches a first-of-its-kind union agreement. To the index now, Apple agreeing to its first ever union contract with employees of one of its stores. The deal still must be approved by roughly 85 workers in a Maryland store, one of only 2 Apple stores in the country with a unionized workforce. Up next, a superfan on a mission. America Strong tonight, the determined baseball fan on a mission.
Peter Knabb is a baseball superfan. The 28-year-old from Cleveland is on a mission to visit all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums in the U.S. His quest even more challenging, traveling in a wheelchair, born with cerebral palsy.
I've had it since birth. I've never been able to walk.
But this Cleveland Guardians loyalist is determined and almost there. From Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri, to Houston's Minute Maid Park, to New York, San Francisco.
First time I've ever been here.
And yesterday, arriving at number 29, Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia.
This is a beautiful ballpark.
Now, with just one stadium left, Peter hoping his journey will inspire others.
Thanks so much for watching tonight. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tonight on PBS News Weekend, as Venezuelans prepare to head to the polls, what's at stake in the nation's most consequential presidential election in a decade? Then retailers are rethinking how they set prices as Americans still feel inflation's bite. And how newcomer breaking is bringing more than just sport to the Paris Olympics.
Breaking is not just a culture and a phenomenon, but it's also art. It's art and a sport. So the fusion of both of that is what people are going to see in Paris.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm John Yang. There are new fears tonight of a wider Middle East conflict after at least 10 children and young adults were killed in a rocket attack on a soccer field in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. Israel said Hezbollah militants were responsible, but the group said it struck a military base in retaliation for Israeli attacks on a village in Lebanon. In Gaza, an airstrike hit a school in what had been designated a humanitarian zone. The Israeli military said Hamas used the area to store weapons and plan attacks. Gaza health officials said more than 30 people were killed. Wildfires are devastating communities in the western United States and Canada. In California, the Park Fire north of Sacramento covers 480 square miles. That's about the size of Los Angeles. Hot, windy conditions are pushing it north. 4 counties are under evacuation orders, and more than 130 structures have been destroyed. And in Canada, a fast-moving fire has devastated the resort town of Jasper, Alberta, in the Canadian Rockies. It's forced the evacuation of 25,000 people in and around Jasper National Park, which is a World Heritage Site. Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign said today that America's democracy is under assault by former President Donald Trump. It was in response to a speech Trump made to Christian conservatives Friday night. He said that if they elect him in November, they would never have to vote again.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine.
Late yesterday, the FBI moved to end speculation about this month's assassination attempt on Trump. They said that a bullet, not shrapnel, hit him at that rally in Pennsylvania. At the Olympics, there are fresh concerns about whether the River Seine will be clean enough for competition next week. It played a big part in yesterday's opening ceremony, but the runoff of wastewater from heavy rain has renewed worries about high bacteria levels. The river is to be the venue Tuesday for the swimming leg of the men's triathlon. And Team USA picked up its first gold medal today in the men's 4x100 freestyle swimming relay. The first gold medal overall went to China in the 10-meter air rifle mixed team competition. Still to come on PBS News Weekend, how new technology helps retailers keep the prices shoppers pay in flux, and the art and sport of breaking as it makes its Olympic debut.
This is PBS News Weekend from WETA Studios in Washington, home of the PBS NewsHour, weeknights on PBS.
Tomorrow's Venezuelan presidential election could be the most consequential in nearly a decade. In about 2 weeks at the Paris Olympics, the debut of an entirely new medal event, breaking, or what's perhaps more widely known to the uninitiated like me as breakdancing. In a Los Angeles dance studio, 21-year-old Logan Edra teaches moves she spent 2/3 of her life developing since she was just 7. In the world of breaking, she's called B-Girl Logistics. And as one of the 4 members of the U.S. breaking team at the Paris Games, she can also be called Olympian.
I see any title or championship or win or medal, it's more for me like a microphone to amplify any message I want. I represent the peace, love, unity, and having fun, and also being a student of the game and caring about the evolution of like where this is going and keeping it alive.
The first Olympic breaking competition was at the 2018 Youth Games in Buenos Aires. The Olympics recognizes it as an urban sport, like skateboarding, also an Olympic event. Competitors need improvisation, athleticism, and coordination, drawing on disciplines like martial arts and gymnastics. It was created in the 1970s at South Bronx dance parties by Black and Latino youths. It's said that the name comes from the breaks in hip-hop songs, when the vocals drop out, leaving a steady driving beat. The 1983 film Flashdance helped breaking go mainstream with a scene with members of the hip-hop group Rocksteady Crew. Now its popularity is global. From the United Kingdom to France.
If you think about Paris, maybe you think about the Eiffel Tower and you think about croissants, but when I think about Paris, I think about raw hip-hop.
Nigeria, Egypt.
Dancing is what makes you stay away from smoking and drinking, and all of the self-destructive things. For me, it's an art, but also something that I find myself in.
Brazil, Libya, even Iran.
Here is Iran, and we are dancing. We love to dance as other people do. We want to enjoy our youth.
What was born at block parties of the Bronx will be going for the gold at the Place de la Concorde in the heart of Paris. Ivan Velez, known as Flips, is an actor, TV host, an accomplished dancer and choreographer, and he's been a judge at Olympic qualifying events for breaking. So Flips, first off, help out this unhip baby boomer. Breaking, breakdancing.
So we call it breaking. If you accidentally call it breakdancing, we'll let you slide on the first time. It was more of a media term that came out in the early 80s, but I do understand why people call it breakdancing, because they are breaking and it is a dance. However, we call it breaking.
So what's the significance of having breaking as an Olympic event?
Oh, it is the epitome. I know in 2018 it was in Buenos Aires, and it was the first whiff that we got that we could actually hit the main stage. Breaking is finally where it needs to be, going for gold.
Finally where it needs to be. Is it?
On this Saturday night, grappling with loss in Jasper. More details emerge about the destruction from the national park's largest wildfire in more than a century.
Just seeing it completely gone, it's surreal.
As troops join an intense firefight. An Israeli strike on a Gaza school used for shelter kills dozens as a deadly rocket attack hits the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, threatening to spark a wider war. Red card. FIFA's severe penalty shakes Canada women's soccer. The team's 6-point deduction over the spy drone scandal. And all the Olympic excitement as Summer McIntosh swims to silver.
We are just really excited to see the Canadian teams thrive.
Global National, reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with the devastation and despair in Jasper, Alberta tonight. The damage is extensive and the pain for those who've lost everything, homes, businesses and livelihoods, is still being processed after that massive wildfire ripped through the town, regarded as the beating heart of the Canadian Rockies. Yesterday, Alberta's premier got a first-hand look at all that's been lost. We know 358 structures, or about 30% of the town, has been destroyed. The town's mayor, Richard Ireland, says it's beyond comprehension.
I feel their pain. I see memories of life.
Tonight, crews battling hotspots in the historic town, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and home to about 5,000 people, are hoping for cooler temperatures and rain helping them gain the upper hand. Jamie Dahl is in Hinton, Alberta tonight, where many locals have sought shelter. Jamie, as officials assess the damage, the wildfire is still burning out of control, so it sounds like it's still very much an active situation.
Yes, indeed. That fire is still burning on the perimeter of Jasper tonight. On the north and south, it's 32,000 hectares in size. That's roughly just about under half the size of Edmonton, but the largest fire to burn in this area in 100 years. Now, for the first time, the municipality of Jasper is releasing a map detailing addresses of homes and businesses that have been destroyed. And it's a reality that that town's mayor came face to face with recently. Gaping holes of melted memories pock Jasper's smoldering town site.
I see 67 years.
The town's mayor not spared from the wreckage or the anguish. His family home in ruins.
I think somewhere in there is a photograph of me with a birthday cake and sitting on packing boxes when I was 2. So many others are going to go through the same thing.
This living postcard, constantly teeming with adventure, is sitting idle. The only movement here now is from heavy machinery and the heroes with fire hoses. Legendary and beloved haunts people gathered in, got married in, decimated by that ferocious fire still burning out of control. The heartbreaking event is deeply set in the minds of those who fled it and those who had to stay.
Parts of the town where we used to work or go to eat, or just kind of enjoy the view, and just seeing it completely gone, it's surreal.
Constable Chris McSavage is a Jasper RCMP member, and so is his wife. While he evacuated his community, his wife and young son had to flee, driving 12 hours into BC. He too would eventually be forced out by flames.
Our whole career, we're basically taught to be the ones that everyone goes to for help, and then now it's something happens where we're just standing there. We have to leave because there's nothing we can really do, right?
Close to 100 soldiers from Shiloh, Manitoba arrived in Hinton overnight, ready to help wherever they can.
They can go into areas that have already been addressed by kind of more highly trained firefighters, and they can make sure that the fire is out and is completely safe.
To be here right now and supporting Jasper and the members in the community is the top priority.
They are expected to stay for at least a couple of weeks. For the people of this treasured town, their road to recovery will take much longer. The mayor urging the people not to dwell on the why.
In a time like this, a time of disaster, it is so easy to look to blame. There is no malice, there's no ill will. This is just nature doing what nature does.
Jamie, is there any word on when residents can go back home?
You know, this fire, while it hasn't grown, it's still very much a fluid and active situation. And Parks Canada says with warmer conditions on the way and stronger winds, this is still a very dangerous area, too dangerous to let residents go back there. But they say they are in the midst of trying to come up with some kind of re-entry plan, even just maybe a tour so residents can finally see with their own eyes what their community looks like. And while it's unclear when they will be going back, Parks Canada did say that some wildlife are starting to return to the community, including a grizzly bear who's been collared, and they say they've been monitoring her, and she took shelter during the fire. She survived, and she is now reactive in that area. It's a very hopeful sign in such a desperate situation.
Yeah, some good news there indeed. All right, Jamie Dahl in Hinton.
Joining us now with more is attorney and retired NYPD Inspector Paul Murrow. Paul, I'm sure we'll hear, well, she didn't donate, she just put a link out. This is someone who has time and time again, especially in pressure situations, has sided on behalf of blaming law enforcement. So would we be surprised if she takes that kind of stance as president?
I wouldn't at all. I mean, when you look back on her law enforcement career, such as it was, what becomes clear is that she's been very much a follower of trends.
Yes.
And the things that she thinks are going to enhance her career prospects are the things that she does. She's got a very careerist approach to law enforcement. And some of the things you cite just play right into that. At the height of the reaction to the George Floyd riots, she says outright, putting more police on the street obviously doesn't make us more safe. And it is, in fact, 180 degrees in the other direction. Of course, more police on the streets makes us more safe. It is the most proven deterrent there is to have a uniformed cop visible, to have your omnipresence there on the street in a patrol car. I mean, realistically, you have to be denying reality to think that, but she's perfectly willing to go along with that, just as she was willing to defund, along with L.A. Mayor Garcetti, $150 million from the police budget, thereby cutting numerous police classes, something they're feeling to this day, to support Proposition 47, which dumbed down a lot of the criminal laws there, making felonies misdemeanors. So these are things that look popular at the time for her. She thought they would move her career forward. They did. But that doesn't mean they didn't have a deleterious effect on public safety in the area of her remit.
Yeah, these policy statements are self-evidently wrong and lame and ineffectual. But she wants them to sound sophisticated while saying them, so that she's got this sort of nuanced, thoughtful, reimagining view. But self-evidently, they make people's lives worse. You mentioned part of her record, Paul. As San Francisco DA and California Attorney General, there are a lot of things we'll be examining. Here's a few of them, just three. She did crack down on school truancy in 2011. I wonder if she'd back that position still today. You mentioned Prop 47. Her office in 2014 pushed that, which would reduce felonies to misdemeanors, so we're decriminalizing criminal acts. And then in 2015, this one's kind of interesting, she launched racial bias trainings for police. So it seems like she was kind of DEI anti-racist before it was cool. So you're right, she's identifying these trends, pushing them as if they're going to help public safety. But did they really?
Probably not. Look, you get in a lot of I got anti-bias training in the academy in the 90s, so that really wasn't any great revelation. But as you articulate, it became very trendy at one point to really push it. And that kind of thing very often has the opposite effect, because people push back against it because they feel like, okay, I got it. That's not who I am, but you're
Tonight, new attacks and controversy in a suddenly transformed presidential race.
I'm running against a low IQ individual, her.
Donald Trump goes on the offensive against his new rival and sparks scrutiny with this appeal to Christian voters.
4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christian.
Kamala Harris works to quickly choose a running mate. We'll have the latest. Also tonight, the largest wildfire in the U.S. explodes in size as flames race across the West.
I'm Jonathan Bigliotti in Chico, California, where the park fire has exploded in size, destroying entire neighborhoods.
While Canadians mourn a scarred jewel of the Rockies.
I'm Carter Evans outside of Jasper, where images of destruction are emerging from one of the most scenic places in the country.
Plus, a deadly day in the Middle East. First in Gaza, then in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights.
I'm Deborah Patter in East Jerusalem, where there are fears of a new front opening up after a rocket fired from Lebanon hit a soccer field where children would play.
In France, the Olympic Games begin with a superstar's comeback stealing the show. And later, they rule the roost in Key West. Why this wild flock has many crying foul.
Where are the children? Everywhere. They're everywhere.
This is the CBS Weekend News from Washington. The CBS Weekend News from Washington with Adriana Diaz.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Cordes in for Adriana. Tonight, the presidential contest is getting personal 1 week after President Biden shook up the race by handing the reins to his vice president, Kamala Harris. She held her first fundraiser as the presumptive nominee today. There, she described her opponent and his policies as weird. At a crypto conference in Tennessee, former President Donald Trump called Harris a low IQ individual. And a plea he made to Christian voters at a rally last night is leaving some wondering exactly what he meant. CBS's Natalie Brand is at the White House and leads us off tonight. Good evening, Natalie.
Good evening, Nancy. The Harris campaign says in less than a week, it's raised more than $126 million. And polls show the presidential race tightening with a new presumptive Democratic nominee.
You may have noticed Donald Trump has been resorting to some wild lies about my record.
Fundraising today in Massachusetts, Vice President Kamala Harris called her campaign the underdog in the race and addressed the escalating attacks by former President Donald Trump.
I'm running against a low IQ individual, her.
Who spoke today at a Bitcoin conference in Tennessee. His comments before a crowd of conservative Christians Friday night are also generating new controversy.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you.
The Harris campaign called that a promise to end democracy, while Trump is also getting personal.
3 weeks ago, she was a bum, a failed vice president in a failed administration.
Kamala's big lie about the border.
His campaign is out today with this new ad in 3 key battlegrounds, including the border state of Arizona. In an exclusive interview with CBS News, Harris campaign manager Julie Chavez Rodriguez signaled that if elected, Harris would continue President Biden's recent restrictions on asylum claims.
I think at this point, the policies that are, having a real impact on ensuring that we have security and order at our border are policies that will continue.
The Harris campaign kicked off what it's calling a weekend of action to try and mobilize tens of thousands of volunteers across more than 2,000 events in key swing states. Headliners ranging from the second gentleman to some of the Democratic governors under consideration for running mate.
Former President Trump and Senator Vance rallied together tonight in St. Cloud, Minnesota. That's a conservative area in a Democratic-leading state that their campaign is targeting this year. Nancy?
Natalie Brand at the White House. Thank you. Tonight, fire crews across the West are racing to contain scores of wildfires with more than 2 billion acres burning right now. The Park Fire near the city of Chico, California, is the nation's largest. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti is there. Jonathan.
Nancy, we're here on a ridgeline, and from this perspective, you can see how the wind pushed these flames up into this neighborhood. Tonight, thousands of homes are threatened.
An out-of-control, monstrous inferno. The Park Fire burning just outside the city of Chico, doubling in size since Friday. Now, nearly 350,000 acres, flames incinerating roughly 480 square miles.
Crazy, chaotic, scary.
The fire's burning nearly 5,000 acres every hour. Nearly 10,000 evacuated. More than 130 structures, including homes, have been destroyed. No injuries have been reported. This fire tornado, the result of an inferno so massive, it's creating its own weather system. Crews this weekend are battling major fires throughout the West, in Washington, Idaho, and in Oregon, where a firefighter died Thursday when his air tanker crashed.
Might take the wind chimes.
Chico resident Julia Yarbo is one of the people who lost everything.
This was your dream home.
It really was. It was perfect. It was our sanctuary.
And the wind has calmed down a bit. The temperatures have dropped. But as we mentioned, this fire is creating its own weather system. And tonight, Nancy, this fire continues its destructive path.
Jonathan Vigliotti, thank you so much. And it's not just the U.S. that's on fire. In Canada, 926 active fires are now burning. Fast-moving flames have devastated the town of Jasper, Alberta, and its beautiful national park. CBS's Carter Evans is in Hinton, Alberta. Good evening.
Nancy, this is about as close as people can get to the community of Jasper right now. Earlier this week, 25,000 evacuated. Now, most of them were tourists visiting the national park, but 5,000 locals still don't know when they'll be able to return home.
The latest images from inside this treasured town in the Rockies are a stark contrast to the stunningly beautiful scenes Jasper is known for. About 30% of the buildings here were reduced to ash.
This is 67 years.
Jasper's mayor, Richard Ireland, grew up in this home and lived there until he was forced to evacuate. He's one of the first to view the destruction. With Alberta's premier, Danielle Smith.
Strangely, his was the only house on the entire block that was gone, and yet his garage was still there.
I needed to do what our citizens can't do, and that is see for myself.
And you understand exactly what those people who lost so much are going through.
It is a sad reality.
But he's also hopeful.
Our community will get beyond this, and we will rebuild.
So far, no injuries or deaths have been reported, and for the last few days, the weather's been pretty cool, and we've had some rain, and that really helped tamp down the fire in Jasper. But the heat is expected to return next week, and this fire is still burning, so far covering 140 square miles. Nancy?
And Jasper, a jewel that draws tourists from everywhere. Carter Evans, thanks so much. Smoke from the wildfires in the West is spreading from coast to coast. Let's check in with meteorologist Andrew Kozak with more. Andrew?
Yeah, good evening, Nancy. It's not just the fires and forecasting where they may spread, but it's the smoke from California, from Oregon, the West, combined with the Canadian wildfire smoke that is going to pass across the upper Midwest with, of course, the upper level winds, could be seen as far east as Boston and New York City, the smoke and the haze as we head into your Sunday. Meantime, the air quality, very unhealthy, hazardous even across these areas in the West, which means even if you're a healthy person, being outside for even just a couple of minutes can be detrimental to your health. Let's talk about a fire tornado. It's not an actual tornado, but it's a phenomenon that we see with this. A vortex of wind, smoke, and flames. The intense heat causes the air of all that fire to rise, and as the air comes in to replace it, it looks like a vortex, looks like a tornado. So we're tracking that on Sunday, Nancy, and also some upper Midwest thunderstorms. Could be tracking severe weather across the South as well.
Looks like we're all going to see that smoke to some degree. Andrew Kozak, thank you.
To the Middle East now, and what one U.S. official tells CBS News has been a day of almost all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah. At least 10 young people and children were killed when a rocket from Lebanon hit a soccer field in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. And Israel struck a school in Gaza, killing at least 30 Palestinians. CBS's Deborah Patta reports tonight from Jerusalem.
There are fears of a new front opening up along the Lebanese border after that rocket attack on the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. The Israel Defense Force has blamed the Iranian-backed Hezbollah, who have denied any responsibility.
The rocket slammed into this field where a game of soccer was being played. Spectators rushed to help the injured, those killed, mostly children and teens.
We will finish our assessments and we will act.
Israel and Hezbollah have been trading almost daily fire along the Lebanese border. But this attack could significantly escalate the possibility of an all-out war there. And it comes as the Israeli military is already stretched from nearly 10 months of fighting in Gaza, its longest war ever. Today, Israel issued new evacuation orders in an area in Khan Yunis designated a humanitarian safe zone, once again upending the lives of displaced Palestinians who have already fled multiple times. There were no warnings when the Israeli military struck a school sheltering civilians in central Gaza today. "I can't find my daughter," sobbed this panic-stricken woman. The IDF says it was a Hamas command center, but there were mostly women and children among the more than 30 killed. "We were just sitting, playing happily with this traumatized young boy." The reality on the ground in Gaza is starkly at odds with Benjamin Netanyahu's boast this week in the US that his military took unprecedented steps to protect civilians. While there was applause for his speech in Congress, not many were cheering him back home. For desperate hostage families, a deal appears to be little more than a mirage right now.
Netanyahu was still in the US when the attack along the Lebanese border happened. He's been briefed, and Nancy, he's moved up his return to Israel.
Deborah Patta in Jerusalem tonight. Thank you. Today, we learned that 3 members of the family gospel group, the Nealons, have been killed in a plane crash. They were among 7 people on board a single-engine aircraft that crashed near Recluse, Wyoming. There were no survivors. Tonight, a freeway connecting California to Las Vegas remains closed. Video posted on social media shows miles of stopped traffic on Interstate 15. Northbound lanes were blocked after a semi-truck hauling a container of lithium-ion batteries overturned and caught fire. Straight ahead on the CBS Weekend News, the Olympics in Paris begin with a superstar's return. With the games underway, Sarah Bacon and Cassidy Cook claimed Team USA's first medal, earning silver in the women's synchronized 3-meter springboard. CBS's Jamie Yukas is in Paris covering it all.
Paris organizers didn't want to hold the opening ceremony in a stadium like this one. Instead, they opted for the Seine River, an historic and risky move that left the audience calling it both beautiful and bizarre.
Lady Gaga wowed as the opening ceremony got underway in Paris. The dazzling welcome also left many in a wet mess.
It was amazing. They pulled it off with the rain, with the terrible weather.
Paris became an open-air theater with performances along rooftops, the riverbanks, and monuments. 85 boats carrying thousands of waving athletes from 205 nations. They sailed by in a river procession lasting 4 hours.
We saw the boats coming under the bridge. We saw colorful water, and there were screens, there was music, people were dancing. It was really fun.
Did you get to see all the dancers and things? Or?
We didn't get to see any of that. We didn't see any of that. That was all on the screen.
Even though screens and camera lenses got covered in raindrops, the only way for many fans to see the show.
What we could see was excellent.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Did you think you'd be able to see more?
I was hopeful that I would.
A moment many did see, Team USA flag bearers LeBron James and Coco Gauff wearing ponchos over their Ralph Lauren ensembles as they fought the rain and choppy water. But Team USA kept their spirits high.
Go USA!
As did their fans on dry land.
You guys are all in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you been waiting for this for a long time?
Some stunning moments from the ceremony. A white horseman galloping down the river with the Olympic flag, while the Olympic flame was lit. The Eiffel Tower shined like never before, and everyone stopped to listen to the incredible Celine Dion. Now, attention moves to the games themselves, with 2 weeks of competition. First Lady Joe Biden already out cheering for athletes today.
As for Team USA, they're already collecting medals, including women's synchronized diving and cycling. And Nancy, while Katie Ledecky did not win the 400 meters, the swimmer did win her 11th medal of bronze. She competes again on Wednesday.
We'll be watching Jamie Yukas in Paris. Thanks. Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, SpaceX soars again after a rare failure. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carrying Starlink satellites into orbit blasted off the pad at the Kennedy Space Center early this morning. Liftoff followed a 2-week grounding after a rare in-flight failure for the workhorse rocket. Apple has reached its first ever contract with a retail union. Late Friday, the union representing some 85 employees at a Maryland Apple store announced it had struck a 3-year deal with the company. The tentative deal increases pay an average of 10%. Workers will vote on the deal on August 6th. Star Wars collectors are a force to be reckoned with, especially when it comes to memorabilia. One of them paid an astronomical $175,000 at auction for that gold bikini that was worn by the late Carrie Fisher in Return of the Jedi. You remember it. In 2016, Fisher told NPR that bikini was her favorite costume to see on men. Next on the CBS Weekend News, why chickens are flocking to a Florida tourist destination. We end tonight with a tale about some birds in paradise, chickens to be precise. CBS's Christian Benavides reports from Key West, Florida.
In quirky Key West, Florida, it's not just tourists flocking to town.
Oh yeah, he knows that I'm not a fan.
Feral chickens have found their tropical paradise. And City Commissioner Clayton Lopez has got beef.
Where are the chickens?
Everywhere. They're everywhere.
Entire chicken families are crossing roads.
This is not bad, just one chicken.
A resolution by Lopez, now law, bans feeding chickens in public property.
What I am looking to do is to try and address the health issues of humans as well as the chickens.
Droppings can spread disease. There's property damage. Chickens are run over by cars. Chicks fall into storm drains. And roosters crow at all hours. Rescued chickens are sent to farms in mainland Florida, but it's impossible to catch them all. How did it get like this?
It's the oldest image we have of chickens in Key West.
Key West historian Corey Malcolm tells the tale of the tail feathers.
Chickens were very much a part of early Key West.
Brought in the 1820s by the first settlers.
They would sell them by the dozen to the residents here.
In the 1860s, a Cuban migration.
One of the traditions that came from Cuba was cockfighting. The tradition of raising chickens carries on from the early 1900s into around World War II.
By then, the ease of getting eggs and meat at supermarkets meant homeowners let their chickens loose in a 2-by-4 mile island with no natural predators. In 1986, Florida banned cockfighting. Roosters were let out. In 98, Hurricane George spread them all throughout the island, multiplying ever since. Mitigation has failed. A city-employed chicken catcher in the 2000s quit after swift backlash from chicken enthusiasts.
Here, chickens are as much a tourist attraction as the southernmost point. They're also a popular sight in souvenir shops.
Arthur Bacala owns 3 chicken-themed shops in Key West.
They're everywhere. Yes, that's good for me, for funky chicken owner.
We met him in his chicken-themed wine and coffee bar. There's statues, paintings, t-shirts, mugs, and everything in between. It's part of the island's chicken culture, where it's the chicken's world. We're just living in it. Christian Benavides, CBS News. Key West, Florida.
And that's the CBS Weekend News for this Saturday. I'm Nancy Cordes in Washington. Good night.
Tonight, Israel says at least a dozen children and teenagers were killed after a rocket hit a soccer field where they were playing. The Israeli military says it's the deadliest attack on its civilians since October 7th. And it's blaming Hezbollah, the powerful Iranian-backed militant group in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah tonight denying responsibility, but Israel vowing to strike back.
This attack shows the true face of Hezbollah.
The rocket hitting the Golan Heights, disputed territory Israel captured from Syria in 1967. Most of the victims from the Druze religious minority. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now rushing back from Washington. Hezbollah has fired thousands of rockets at Israel.
We're seeing more interceptions now over the skies of northern Israel as a fresh barrage of Hezbollah rockets comes in.
While more than 100 miles from Gaza, Israel has pounded southern Lebanon, raising fears of war on a second front. In central Gaza today, hospital authorities say at least 36 people were killed, including 15 children, by an Israeli airstrike on a school. This little boy tells our team, glass and stones fell on us. There was dust everywhere. The IDF says it was targeting a Hamas command center inside the school. The latest young lives cut short in this unforgiving war.
And Raf joins us now from Tel Aviv. Raf, we understand the CIA director is heading to Europe for hostage talks.
That's right, Lester. He'll be in Rome tomorrow for what a senior administration official says are hopefully the closing stages of ceasefire negotiations, but those talks could get a lot more complicated if there's major escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. Lester.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news.
It was amazing. We happen to have our whale protection unit folks who have training for satellite tag buoy attachment to trailing gear and actually had a tag on them, as well as Straight Watch was in the area who also have the training that I work with all the time. So it's kind of one of those things, everything came together pretty quickly, and they were able to get out there and locate the animal that was trailing the gear and then put this satellite tag on. And then I was able to get myself and my team up there with the disentanglement equipment and on the water. And then as a team, we worked the whole afternoon, finishing around 11 last night. It was recreational prawn gear. that was on the whale, and we removed over 100 feet of line, and the animal was obviously very agitated. There is still likely a loose wrap on the animal that we're monitoring, so we're out today, and we'll be out later today to confirm that hopefully that gear has come off as well. But it was just a great effort by everybody yesterday to work with this whale to get that gear off that was that was trailing.
Hello and welcome to Daybreak here on France 24. Here are this morning's main news headlines. It's raised fears of a broader regional war. Israeli jets strike Hezbollah targets in Lebanon after Benjamin Netanyahu warned that the Iran-backed militant group would pay a heavy price after 12 people were killed, mostly children and teenagers, in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. Tensions are high in Venezuela as voters go to the polls this Sunday for a presidential election. Seeking a third term in office, Nicolas Maduro has said the outcome will decide whether the country enters a period of peace or war. And it's the largest wildfire that's burned through the US state so far this year. Thousands of firefighters are currently battling to contain a rapidly moving blaze in Northern California.
In this country, there will be elections in peace. There will be free elections. There will be results and acknowledgements of the results. There will be celebration. There will be peace. Peace and peace. There will be future. No one can stay in the process.
Staying in the region and turning to Peru, where thousands of anti-government demonstrators have joined a rally in the capital Lima to demand justice for those killed and injured during protests that began in December 2022. Uluwarte. In other world news, Japanese and American defence chiefs and senior diplomats are to meet in Tokyo this Sunday for talks aimed at further bolstering their military cooperation, including by upgrading the command and control of US forces and strengthening American licensed missile production in Japan amid a rising threat from China. For the first time, they'll also hold separate talks to reaffirm Washington's commitment to so-called extended deterrence, which includes atomic weapons. More than 50,000 American troops are currently based in Japan. Let's turn now to the latest in the race for the White House. He's calling her a crazy liberal while she's vowing to prevail over his wild lies. With just 100 days until polling day, both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have been laying out their presidential campaign attack lines, describing his rival as a radical left lunatic. Trump also hammered her and President Joe Biden's record on illegal immigration, inflation and crime.
The people in this room, high IQ individuals. I'm running against a low IQ individual, her. I'm not even talking about him, her. I got a low IQ individual. Kamala is worse than Joe. She's worse. She's a radical left lunatic, defund the police, all of the different things. And so far she's got a little honeymoon going on right now, but when people hear about her, and she's against crypto, by the way, and she's against it very big. So I just want to let you know, you got to get out. You got to get out and vote.
Harris, meanwhile, has used her first fundraiser since becoming the Democrats' likely White House nominee to hit out at Trump, saying her Republican rival was determined to roll back Americans' freedoms. She told supporters in Massachusetts that she'd enter the race as an underdog, but was confident that her surging campaign would defeat Trump.
Let us be clear-eyed. We have a fight ahead of us. We got a fight ahead of us. And we are the underdogs in this race. Okay? Level set. We're the underdogs.
For the 134 buildings it's already destroyed.
Normal service has been resuming here in France after the national rail operator was hit by multiple acts of sabotage that paralysed the network on Friday, hours ahead of the Olympics opening ceremony. Tens of thousands of passengers struggled through a second day of cancelled and delayed trains on Saturday, but services should be fully restored by Monday, as Yinka Oyetade explains.
Parts of French rail traffic remains at a standstill.
It started off as an hour delay, then an hour and 40 minutes, and now an hour and 40 minutes have passed, so it's going to be even more delayed.
In eastern France, traffic may have returned to normal, but in the north and west, train services are still at a halt. The country reeling from a massive and coordinated sabotage attack on high-speed national rail lines hours before Friday's Olympic opening ceremony.
Our train was cancelled. We found another train, but then that was cancelled too at the last minute, so we couldn't make it to the opening ceremony.
It's okay, we always stay positive.
French authorities are looking into who could have been behind Friday's attacks. At this signal box in Eure-et-Loire, investigators are taking samples after dozens of cables were set alight. The arsonists seem particularly well informed about the location and types of cables here. Everything now has to be tested and replaced, a time-consuming job.
We're doing our very best to work as fast as possible so we can start testing. We're doing our best.
France's Interior Minister says the investigation is making good progress.
We have a lot of information, so we should know who was responsible very soon.
Authorities say the high-speed train network will be up and running as usual by Monday morning.
Well, that's it from us for now. Stay with us, though, for more world news here on France 24.
DRC President Felix Tshisekedi has criticized Kenyan President William Ruto for mishandling the Nairobi process, which was designed to create dialogue with armed groups in eastern DRC. Tshisekedi accused Ruto of taking sides with Rwanda, a stance he believes has stalled the initiative. The process, originally initiated by former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, aimed to support disarmament and demobilization efforts. Several meeting cycles have occurred, but progress has stalled since the Kenya and the EAC full consultations. The French nuclear fuel specialist reported a loss of 133 million euros for the first half of the year, according to results presented on Friday. These contrast the first quarter of 2023, when the company however faced difficulties. To an was reduction to finance of the site. Schools in Haiti's capital and beyond are crumbling as gang violence deepens poverty and disrupts basic government services as the state system faces a $23 million deficit. On Friday, UNICEF announced a $2.5 million grant that is expected to help nearly 75,000 children.
A big part of the solution will be resolved through that. You will end extreme poverty, you will end violence, you will create political stability, you will have a viable workforce.
Gang violence has also left some 580,000 people homeless across Haiti, with many crowding into makeshift shelters. It is very difficult because the camp has huge impact. At night, after closing the school, the courtyard is crowded with people, but we allow them to stay. We are human. We cannot throw them out. That also creates very bad hygienic problems. At least 919 schools remain closed in Port-au-Prince and in the central region of Atibonite because of the ongoing gang violence. The closures have affected more than 150,000 students, according to UNICEF. The insecurity has had a huge impact in my life. The state should find a solution for that. We shouldn't be living in a country where our movement is limited. Schools that remain operational are increasingly forced to take students from other institutions that have shuttered.
We want to set up a support for them.
Watch Dead Alone in Singapore on demand at cna.asia.
Headline news this hour. Fears of a widening conflict in the Middle East following a deadly strike in Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blames Hezbollah and vows retribution even as the militant group denies responsibility. An inferno in the U.S. state of California has doubled in size within a day. Thousands of firefighters are battling the blaze that's rapidly becoming one of the state's biggest ever. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken calls out Beijing over what he called destabilizing actions in the South China Sea. His Chinese counterpart Wang Yi pushes back and urges Washington not to fan the flames. And that's the latest from the CNN newsroom. It's the latest from the CNN newsroom.
The foreign ministers of the US, Japan, Australia and India are set to meet in Tokyo. Top of the agenda is territorial disputes in the South China Sea. The ministers from the four-way grouping known as the Quad are expected to establish a dialogue framework as part of its efforts to maintain a rules-based maritime order. Find out more on your next Asia First.
This is DW News and these are our top stories. Israel says at least 12 children and teenagers have been killed in a rocket attack in the occupied Golan Heights. The missile struck a football pitch in the town of Majd al-Shams. Israel is blaming the Hezbollah militia, which is backed by Iran and based in Lebanon. The militant group has denied being involved. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says 30 people were killed and more than 100 injured in an Israeli strike on a school where displaced people were sheltering. Israel's military says Hamas militants were using the compound in Deir al-Bala to launch attacks and civilians were warned. Hundreds of thousands of revelers have turned out for Berlin's annual Pride Parade, known as Christopher Street Day. The mass gathering celebrates progress in achieving equal rights, but the day is also a reminder that LGBT people still face persecution in many countries. You're watching DW News from Berlin. There is much more on our website, that's dw.com.
Just over 100 days stand between us and a fundamental choice about the future of the United States of America.
Kamala Harris's election campaign is full steam ahead, with a big decision looming.
The Veep stakes are in full swing.
In the mix, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro.
What's up, Philly? You could not have a clear contrast between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Now, let me tell you something. He's pretty afraid.
Arizona Senator Mark Kelly is also on the short list, a former combat naval pilot and former astronaut, married to former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, who survived an assassination attempt.
If Mark Kelly can really win Arizona, or Josh Shapiro can really win Pennsylvania, that is very inviting. That means you have to spend less money and time in those states to win them.
Former Indiana Mayor, now Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is also a possible. But the first openly gay person appointed to a U.S. cabinet position could hit a glass ceiling.
You're trying to get elected the first multiracial woman as president, and you add on to the ticket a gay married man with 2 kids. Shouldn't matter, does matter.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a.k.a. Big Gretch, is a rising star of the Democratic Party. But 2 women?
I mean, it's incredibly unfair. Nobody complains about tickets with two men or two white men. But the idea of having a ticket with two women, is that too much change?
Kamala Harris is expected to announce her decision in the next couple of weeks. That doesn't give her team much time to vet the candidates or try them out on the national stage. Joe Biden said choosing Kamala Harris was his very first and best decision in 2020. As she mulls her options, the vice president is now acutely aware of where that choice might lead.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Goodman. Have a good life.